What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Course Thought Radio Underground. We're going to talk a little bit about the Bad Batch tonight. Let me go ahead and get everybody in here and see if anybody else shows up. But what's going on, guys?
What's happening?
We just finished up our show where we interviewed Dominic Pace, so we had a hell of a night.
I was there. Fantastic show.
Ro was there. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, not a problem. Wasn't he an easy interview?
He was fantastic. As far as like interviews that I've ever done, like collegiately, like he was a really giving interviewer.
Yeah.
Interviewee.
Yeah.
That's why that's why I said you just give him a little string and he just goes on forever, man.
Yeah. It really makes it real easy. You just kind of lead him down a path that you think he wants to head down, and he'll go ahead and do the walking.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, no, he was a blast when we had him on with us, and like Rose said, you just give him something and he just runs with it.
Yeah.
But I just kind of wanted to hop on here tonight and talk about the Bad Batch. We haven't done an episode talking about it yet. 5 weeks into the show, so wanted to jump on and do that. But I mean, what are y'all thinking about the show so far?
I enjoy it. I've said it before on our show and other shows. I wasn't too crazy when I first saw the Bad Batch in season 7 was it season 7 of Clone Wars? The last complete season. I thought they were okay, but it's totally surprising me. And even Wrecker, I thought Wrecker was probably going to be my least favorite character because he's too childish, too made for a young audience. But they are really building him up to tug at your heartstrings, and I'm really enjoying a lot of aspects of the show. I'm enjoying the animation, which looks phenomenal. I'm enjoying the relationships between all the characters, and I'm enjoying Moff Tarkin. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Don?
I'm kind of in the same camp there. When I watched the 4 episodes in season 7, I was a little bit underwhelmed. Hunter's like Rambo-esque persona was real rough. I thought, like Rose said, I thought Wrecker was going to end up being kind of a shallow character. And even like in like episode 1, I wasn't too overjoyed with Crosshair, but those of us that have been through it kind of are like, Crosshair kind of does his own thing. But I'm really enjoying each episode. There doesn't seem to be any real filler. The storyline seems to be moving along at a pretty good clip. Surprisingly enough, the Omega character, I really kind of adore that character. And at first I expected to not like her at all.
It's funny because, I mean, Filoni has always introduced us to young characters with Ahsoka and then with Ezra, and nobody liked Ahsoka at first, nobody liked Ezra at first, and they had to build them into that. And so I think it was fair to kind of go, I don't know what I'm going to think about this character up front.
Right. Yeah, she really grew on me real fast.
Yeah.
The Aussie accent, not Aussie, that's
Kiwi.
what I'm looking for. Kiwi accent is really strong. It took me just a minute to get over, but fantastic little character.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see where they're going with it because I know, and I'm really liking. I'm kind of in the same boat as y'all, where I really like a lot of what I'm seeing, and I didn't expect to necessarily. I just kind of thought, I mean, Resistance was just kind of ho hum, and I was a little afraid this was going to be more of the same. But it's a little more obvious that Filoni's much more hands on with this one than he was with Resistance, and it's very much a Dave Filoni project.
Absolutely.
And I'm anxious to see where they're going. I mean, I saw a lot of people talking about the last episode being a side quest. But I don't, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to call it a side quest when I don't know, we don't even really know what the main quest is.
Right.
Right. I mean, they're just, it's a really interesting time period because it's one we haven't gotten to explore much. I mean, what happened in the days right after Order 66? I mean, they're just trying to land on their feet somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any favorite episode at this point?
You know, I just watched the entire run with my son because he had only watched the first one, and I've seen them all, obviously, because we got to talk about it on the platform. But you know, going back, and this is my second time seeing the rest of the episodes, they're really great. It's really hard to pick like one favorite. I think you know, we have to let the entire series, I think, in my mind, kind of play out to see which one really is my favorite. But they're all pretty good. They each have some really great elements to them, and I really can't wait to just to kind of keep going and keep diving into the story because, like you said, we don't know what the main mission is. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really enjoying, you know, the steps to get there. So yeah, absolutely.
I was real fond of episode 1 right off jump. The execution order 66 from the perspective that they told was really great.
I mean, episode 1 totally sold me. I mean,
yeah.
Yep. And bringing for whatever reason his name's escaping me. Dune is the only word that's in my head.
Kanan.
Kanan, thank you.
Yeah.
Bringing him in to kind of bring that loop around, I thought was great writing. And I really kind of got a kick out of the episode where Wrecker makes the little room for Omega.
Yeah. Right.
It was a real touching episode. It was solid writing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's interesting exploring because we always explore the family dynamic, and we're kind of doing it's my 4 dads, right? Is that what we're doing now? It's you know, kind of all of them are kind of finding something of normalcy through her,
right?
And so it's been a really, really interesting thing, and I'm anxious to see. I mean, obviously, there's something big with Omega that we don't know about yet. But what were you about to say, Ro?
You know what? I forgot.
Sorry,
but no, I'm really enjoying. Like you said, I'm really enjoying just how Omega is relating to each individual character. Obviously, she's got, you know, ties to Hunter. You see the father-daughter relationship, whatever. But it's I like it. I like it a lot, and I know, you know, a lot of people have been complaining that we're seeing this with Din Djarin and Grogu, kind of the parent relationship, the daddy thing, but it's I don't think it's similar. I think it's very different.
Oh yeah,
but I'm, you know, for whatever it's worth, I'm really digging it.
So where do y'all think they're going? I mean, obviously there's something going on with the Kaminoans. I mean, they've obviously had some sort of contingency plan of their own in place, and whether, you know, I'm assuming that Omega is probably part of, you know, whatever's going on there. But I mean, what do y'all think's going on there? I mean, they've definitely hinted that the Kaminoans are trying to find at least their safe way out of the predicament that they're in.
I definitely do think that this is their first foray into trying to clone Force sensitives. Whether we've seen Omega demonstrate that power or not, I think there are hints. But, you know, going forward, I know they have to try to connect what's going on now to the sequel trilogy, and I think this is kind of their roundabout way of doing it. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
take a quick second to say hello to, I'm assuming Michelle there in the chat. So
Yeah, that's usually
welcome.
Michelle.
And thanks for joining us. But what were you about to say, Don?
Well, what I was going to say is, as me and Brady both think that Omega is probably an early commission of Palpatine. He probably commissioned the Caminos right after he took control to, actually, right after he started to make his moves in the Senate, to make him a clone that has the ability to, access the Force. And she seems to have the characteristics. They seem to be hinting that she has the characteristics of each member of the Bad Batch. And she very well may be a hybrid of all of them.
That's interesting. Yeah, you see that?
Me and Brady have both noticed little, flecks of this or that. So I think that might lend to why she has such camaraderie with each member of the Bad Batch. She identifies a bit with each character.
Yeah.
And she definitely seems to be picking up their talents like right away.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She picked up Hunters like right away, the ability to track people and
What a Mary Sue.
you're right.
I'm just kidding. I'm
Just give it
kidding.
all
I'm just
to her.
kidding.
So, as far as she goes, I mean, I do think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, she's obviously a clone, so, what they're going for, I don't know, but it seems like, I mean, I think Filoni's definitely moving to fill in some pieces on how Palpatine somehow returned. And there's been some rumors about the next season of The Mandalorian as far as Rey's story, which I think is obviously just referring to kind of backstory about how Rey came to be. Because there's been a lot of talk about there were rumors that that season 3 of The Mandalorian was going to fill in more of Rey's story, and a lot of people said that makes no sense for Rey to be in it. And I don't think that's it. I think that it's more about the cloning process of Palpatine and all that stuff. So
That's my favorite line too, by the way, Michelle, of all the sequel trilogy.
Oh, I'm in the private chat. I'm not seeing any of this. Hold on.
It's the other tab.
So I mean, do you think that's where they're going? I mean, is this part of filling in the backstory for Palpatine?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the Kaminoans are definitely hiding something, and I think they are hiding the fact that she's a commission from Palpatine from back in the day, even before. Was the Jedi that went over there to start the process? Sifo Dyas.
Sifo Dyas.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely setting that up.
So she's definitely Rey's mother, then, right?
Exactly.
Theoretically, not impossible.
No, not impossible.
Wow.
But I do think that the purpose of this, well, I don't know if it's the purpose. The purpose of this show is to sell us something that we're going to pay for. But I think that the intention of this show is to take a lot of the strings that are in a lot of the projects that we like and pull them into a nice little bow.
Yeah, and that's really what Filoni's good at.
Absolutely. Whether you like the sequel trilogy or not, I think they have been, it's out there. There's nothing we can do. But now at this point, it's it's their job. It's going to be their job to pull on those strings and kind of tie it together, like you said, and put it present it to us in a nice bow. What we think of the sequel trilogy afterwards is going to be very interesting. I think the same way that we saw him do what he did in the Clone Wars for everybody to go Google over the prequel trilogy is something to be desired. But we'll see if that happens. I personally don't think that the sequel trilogy will have the same lasting effect that the prequel trilogy had, but I may be wrong. I don't have a magic DeLorean or a crystal ball, so we'll see what happens. But either way, I think I'm still excited to see this story as it pertains to what's happening now. So I'm all for that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, because it's interesting to see. I mean, Filoni definitely, and I'm a longtime prequel defender. I mean, I loved the story from the beginning there, but there's no doubt that Lucas and Filoni through the Clone Wars series elevated that trilogy. Sure. And I certainly think that there is an avenue here for both Filoni and Favreau through their current projects to elevate the sequel trilogy. I don't know that it's ever as compelling because I don't know that. I mean, I just don't know. I look at those first six movies as kind of one set and the sequel trilogy as another set because Vader's story ended at six. And Lucas even always said, even in the days of the original trilogy, that it was really Darth Vader's story. It was the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. So it's kind of like two separate things. And I don't know that anything that they did in the sequel trilogy is as compelling as Darth Vader's story.
No, I would have to agree with you on that.
But
and
I certainly,
and it's really a shame because I don't know, somehow, and I know 1 through 6 that was it, but somehow I don't know how they would have been able to really offer us a sequel trilogy that would be impactful enough to really affect the original 6 movies that we obviously all know and love. It'd be interesting to find out in an alternate universe of our own to see how Lucas's story or the rest of Lucas's story would have played out as a collection of the whole, since he is the author of this IP. So we'll never know, but
right.
That's
one of those things that's, I'd love to see it, but it's not going to happen, and I can accept that. And I mean, truth be told, I just want more content. I want good content. It's like I said, we were talking on the science fiction area the other day. I want a good story.
Sure.
I don't need old characters to return. I don't need to rehash things. I just want a good story. And there's tons and tons of room in the Star Wars universe for good stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you brought up earlier, the Clone Wars series allowed them enough room to tell a story that took the parts of the prequel trilogy that weren't desirable and spin them in a way that we all went, oh, okay, that makes sense to me now, or that feels good to me now, or whatever. And like you say, some of these new TV shows, through the wonder of episodic TV, you're allowed to flesh things out and let them breathe, and nothing ends up on the cutting room floor, and they can take a bad decision and spin it in a light that makes you appreciate what they wanted to do with it. So I'm kind of excited to see what they're working on now does to the way we feel about the sequel trilogy. But it won't never be it won't never be. It will never be part of the original 6, because like you say, that's Darth Vader's story.
Right. So kind of switching back to the Bad Batch. I mean, do you have a favorite clone, a favorite member of the Bad Batch?
I'm going to surprise myself and say Wrecker at this moment. I think, you guys were saying it earlier before Dominic was on your show that Wrecker really, he's turning out to be just a lovable lug. And again, I didn't like him at first. Same with Ahsoka. I mean, Dave Filoni obviously has this way of writing these characters that really kind of crawl into your heart. So for me, I think it's going to be Wrecker. I like the other clones, but Wrecker really has, I don't know, there's something about him right now that that you feel for. And obviously his periodic headaches are starting to get a little, more more frequent. And I think I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. So where do you think they're going with that? I mean, is it all a red herring, or or is he going to succumb to the chip, to Order 66?
I have thoughts, but it'll make everybody sad. So Order 66 will happen with him. He is going to turn on somebody, and Omega is going to be the one that takes him out. That's drama. That's drama right there.
Yeah, that is pretty likely
dark.
possibility. Yeah, and dark. I was thinking exactly the same thing, but I was thinking it would be Omega who probably talks him down.
Or saves him.
Yeah, like not retribution, but
A redemption arc.
redemption arc.
As we all know, Star Wars is fond of doing, other than Ben Solo, but we'll not go there.
Right. Because there's going to be no coming back for Crosshair.
And that's interesting too, because I heard some posts, some people talk about redemption arc with Crosshairs too, because there's little hints when he came back to their room. He saw the notches, the mission notches, and it's almost like he was about to, mark it, but you can tell like he was feeling nostalgic. And I think, with Omega telling him, we understand it's not your fault. You're not in control. So she knows something, obviously, that the rest of us do, or maybe the rest of us don't suspect. So maybe it's Omega that will bring him back too, but we'll see.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of wondering. I do think they're going to go after. I mean, they kind of insinuated in the last episode that they're going to try to get him back. My thought, though, and I don't know. I'm kind of after episode 5 didn't really go the way I expected. I'm less inclined to believe it's true, but I wondered if we were going to see the members of the group fall to the chip one at a time, until either they all fell to it or one of them fell to it, and she's the one that has to bring them back.
Now that would be interesting, because we've got 16 episodes, so that's a long time.
Yeah, we're less than a third of the way through.
Yeah, and if that were to happen, imagine the drama of the story of each one falling into that trap. I mean, we would lose our collective. I think that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, welcome to the room.
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much. So what are you thinking of the Bad Batch so far?
I'm loving it. I'm digging it. We just got done recording this week's Wookiee Radio, or this upcoming new episode, and with this current episode, I put out there, we're starting to see the Bad Batch, especially with the offer from Sid to become mercenaries or potentially bounty hunters. I'm hoping more for the mercenary role, because then the Bad Batch is the Star Wars version of the A-Team.
Yeah.
Which could very well be that an inspiration that they could go with this.
Definitely. I'd like to see that. Who's Baracus?
Right now, I would say it's probably Omega. You can send Omega in as the face and get almost anything you want.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Face, yeah.
All I need to hear is Wrecker say, I don't like flying.
Yeah.
I thought you
Did you mix up your A-Team people?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Maybe get Hunter to say I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then a Cylon walks by.
Now we're getting deep.
Right?
Yeah.
Deep cuts for the young fans.
Yep.
They're like Cylons? Cylons.
What's that?
So, do you have a favorite episode up to this point?
Actually, I think I like this latest episode that came out.
It was a fun episode.
I think it touched on a little bit of everything. Record, definitely we see the epitome of his personality. Oh, Rancor will respect whoever beats it. Cool, I got this challenge.
Yeah. He's got some really great little lines and stuff like that. That's another reason that he's just winning the hearts of everyone.
Yeah. Hunter's just overall, I mean, this was a good episode for Hunter stepping up as a group lead, going, okay, I'm the one who's going to talk. Tech and Echo are almost irreversible. They're both that the techies, but depending on what you're looking for. If you need a slicer, you got Echo. If you need someone to manipulate something, you got Tech. So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a lot of good stuff going on there with kind of each of them having their own skill set, and like you said, it's easy to compare them to something like the A Team or the Expendables. I saw somebody the other day that basically said, after this last episode, tell me that this isn't just the Expendables in Star Wars. And I mean, it's a little bit Marvel with everybody having their skill set, especially when you throw, you kind of have your own version of the Hulk thrown in there. So, they're playing on a lot of themes there.
I could definitely see where it's a mix of A-Team meets the Expendables.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
What would be the most interesting aspect of the story of this show overall for each of you guys? Is it I guess we can answer it individually, but what aspect of the story going forward are you guys most interested to kind of see flesh out?
I think this first season, I want to see fleshed out how Crosshair is going to deal with the fact that the clones are being totally decommissioned completely, and that he's eventually going to be one of those that's not kept with the new Imperial Army.
You know what I thought? You reminded me. I thought that that Order 67 would be for all the recruits to turn on the clones and kill them. How wicked would that be?
I just don't see it, because unless they get unless when they come in they get inhibitor chips. I mean, that's
no, and this would be I'm not, and I wouldn't even talk about a chip thing. This would just be, a directive from Palpatine himself, like everybody who recruits.
It's interesting. I mean, we've already seen that the new recruits don't really have a lot for the clones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
At some point in the galaxy, there becomes almost a racism against clones.
Yeah. You can see that.
And
I mean, you even see that now. Yeah, you even see that now as far as the regs against the Bad Batch during the first. Was it the first episode when they were in the lunchroom together? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's already an us versus them mentality of it. So I can definitely see, how that continues to perpetuate itself.
Yeah.
What do you got there? Tic Tacs, Mike?
No, I was looking at my I was looking at my earbuds to see if I had a cleaning tool, because all of a sudden y'all just got quieter, and I know my earbuds are clogged.
TMI.
So I'm really hoping to see them spend a good probably 10 episodes or so walking these characters through, fleshing out how they fit in this new world. Because like it's changing constantly around them.
And
To
fast.
yeah, and fast to something that we're all familiar with. But they're the ones who are kind of fish out of water going through this, trying to see like he was saying, landing on their feet somewhere. Um, when the ground under you is constantly changing, where do you plant your feet? You know, who do you become? What do you choose to do? How does your situation change who you have to become? And I think they're probably going to toy with us for quite a while. We're gonna experience a few different emotions, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, this is an area we haven't explored just a whole lot, and so I'm really curious to see, what happens. I mean, we still presumably have an awful lot of clones around after Order 66, but as far as what we have seen in universe, there's not a lot of we're not seeing a lot of clones around the galaxy, but we hadn't seen a lot from this particular era where they would have still really been around a lot. But man, are they just used up as fodder? As the Empire expands its territories, or like Rose said, are they just completely decommissioned and possibly killed off by the Empire itself?
Well, part of that's alluded to in Rebels when we when Rex and Gregor and Wolf are all reintroduced to us. Is they just came out and said the Empire had nothing for us.
Right. And so that's going to be the interesting thing. And as far as the Bad Batch themselves, that's what I want to see. What happens to them? Like Don was saying, I want to see where they end up. Do they become part of the rebellion? Do they disappear like Rex and some of the others did for a while, and just kind of go off and hide and do their own thing, where they can be left alone? Or where does that go? And of course, do y'all know, has there been any kind of talk about a second season, or is this it? Is it just a one-off?
Yeah, I thought it was just a one-off because they're getting ready to do some other stuff after this, and I don't think that Dave Filoni is going to spend any more time in the animated universe for long. I think they're setting him up to do some other stuff. But Charles had an interesting question in the chat. We don't see Omega after this story. Where do you think her arc ends? And that's one of the things that I am always curious about with these characters at this point in time. We know that the sequel trilogy exists. We know what happens during the sequel trilogy, the events, the characters, the outcome, even after episode 9. What does that all mean now? Who are these people now? Do they have any effect on that? That's always interesting to me. And at this point, I don't see the connection. And obviously, we're talking about the connective tissue between what we're getting, through the Filoniverse here, for lack of a better term. But I hope that at the end of this journey, I will at least take a look at the sequel trilogy and say, oh, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what do y'all think? Because I think that's an interesting, question there. And what happens to Omega? I mean, obviously, we're in a war, we're in a galaxy at war, and we're just the Clone Wars have ended, and now we're beginning almost 2 decades of Imperial occupation. So a lot can happen in a galaxy in that kind of situation. So it may be kind of left to question after this series is over, but where do you think they're going overall with Omega's story?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard some fan rumors that Omega is potentially a grandmother to Ray, that she potentially respond, is the mother of Ray's father. I don't know, but I've also heard too that Ray's father is a Palpatine clone, which I had. I'm not. I think we talked about that last week.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's one of the things. I mean, I kind of mentioned jokingly a minute ago. I mean, maybe it's Ray's mother, and I mean, she would be the right age. I mean, we're not talking totally out of the question here. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's where they're going with it. I think that's a little too on the nose as far as where this story is going. But and Filoni doesn't usually do things that on the nose. He's a little more
right.
creative than that usually. And
Well, I think very well could be just because her father is a Palpatine clone. We're all assuming Omega is a um, clone from Django. I mean, it hasn't necessarily been determined that she truly is or not. If she is, what would be the perfect offspring of uh, from two clones? A clone from someone from Naboo who has force wielding abilities, and a quote unquote Mandalorian, be it a true Mandalorian or um, a foundling, but someone raised in the Mandalorian tradition
yeah.
combined. So,
Well, there's been some interesting stuff, and that's something because Filoni. I mean, obviously, almost everything we have about Mandalorians has come from Filoni himself. And but one of the things, recognizing the history of the conflicts between the Jedi and the Mandalorians, but the one thing that he has constantly done is put them together to work together. So, yeah, I mean, he could be doing a lot of stuff there. As far as she could be a totally different clone, and the Kaminoans did mention that the clones were beginning the DNA structures were beginning to degrade. So I'm assuming that she was part of their answer to fixing that problem. So
Do
yeah,
we do we know do we know whose DNA Omega's donor is? Like who was it?
Not at this point.
we don't.
Some
it's alleged to still be Django. They just gender altered the gender of the clone.
I saw some post that said that when Obi-Wan went to Kamino to figure out what was going on with the clones, that the Kaminoans somehow took his DNA, and that's why Omega may be force sensitive. It's a happy accident.
It's possible. I just found in Wikipedia, Rey's father was a cloned son, a bioengineered strand cast of Darth Sidious.
Right.
So there you go. He's a clone. For whatever that's worth.
But nothing said about the mom in that.
I don't know.
I think we pulled that up last week.
Did you?
Yeah, when you were on the show with us. We talked about that, and so because that's when I corrected myself that because I didn't realize he was a clone. But nothing says that the mom's not a clone either.
This says that Rey's mom is a scavenger Jedi
Rey's mom?
affiliated with the Resistance Jedi Order.
Yeah.
I'm going to check Wikipedia, though, because they're usually kind of pretty close to what's right.
Yeah, I don't know that we've been given any. I mean, now granted, I haven't read everything that's out there, but if we've been given info on Ray's mom, I haven't read it.
If we go with the scavenger for a force wielding scavenger, that could be the direction Omega's heading.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if she gets separated from the Bad Batch at some point, where she's just forced to scavenge for her own survival.
Yeah.
Right. So before we wrap up, as we kind of keep going though, so far we've had Tarkin show up. We've had Fennec Shand, who is, I know in my house has quickly become a favorite.
She's badass. She was
She is.
better in this episode than in Mando.
Yeah.
They gave her more to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, her, just strolling through a Star Cruiser taking out stormtroopers in that last episode was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But, she's a great character, and of course it's Ming Na Wen, who's always great in everything she does. And so who else do you think is going to show up, or would you like to see show up?
Wow.
Yeah. I really think at some point it makes perfect sense to see him.
Yep. Absolutely.
See, possibly.
You can't have Grand Moff Tarkin marching around the galaxy without his sidekick.
True.
I'd like to see Kanan a couple more times. I'd like to see them bump into him as he's
Growing
kind
older.
of hiding and
Yeah.
On the run. Yeah.
Mhm. Or maybe even just once.
Yeah, the last time we saw him, he was jumping a chasm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the first episode, yeah.
What about Fed himself?
I actually think there's a good chance that happens. In fact, I think that Daniel Logan's kind of been teasing us about that a little bit on his Twitter.
I'm just trying to think who else. Because Sabine's too young. Hera, I think will still be kind of too young. Unless we see a younger Hera.
Yeah.
There's no purpose behind that.
Yeah. The Resistance is really young at this point.
We could see the Bad Batch showing up to save Hera's people from some kind of an incident.
Right.
We could see her as a young person.
I wouldn't mind seeing a Cal Kestis.
Yeah, I mean, there's any number of Jedi that we don't know exactly when they died after or the order was given. So there's any number of Jedi we could have show up here, whether it be Jedi Knights or their Padawans.
Right.
But getting back to something you said earlier, Andrew, is as long as we get a pretty good story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, and it's all about the story. I want a story that makes sense, and I want something enjoyable. I mean, I'm not one of these guys that needs a perfect story. I just want a good story and a fun story, and
you said it, something that makes sense. I think with Dave Filoni at the helm, one of the wonderful surprises that I had with this last episode of The Mandalorian, when Grogu was calling out, everybody was saying who listened, who heard his call, and there was obviously speculation that Kanan, Luke Skywalker, people were saying they're not going to do Luke, no way they're not going to do Luke, but it narratively it made the most sense. He was the strongest Jedi, or the only Jedi out there, kind of like listening and tuning in and trying to recover what was left of the galaxy at that point, I guess. But as far as making sense, I think we've learned from that aspect of the Mandalorian that I think they'll be true to the story, whatever that story is, and it'll make sense.
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is Filoni, he's not always perfect. He makes mistakes in some of his stuff, and I mean he's got some real stinkers of episodes, but he's written an awful lot of them. But I mean, he's written some of the best lore in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah.
And
As long
the
as we
thing that
don't
I
have.
go ahead.
I was
gonna
just going to
that
say. I love Zoom.
yeah. Go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, as long as we don't have any episodes about droids or Princess or Queen Amidala, we should be fine.
Snow singing droids with space whales.
I will say this about some of the episodes that, as an adult, I haven't cared anything about. This, the Clone Wars and Rebels, they're things that I watch with my 3 young children. And the episodes that I could care less about, they're always some of their favorites.
Sure.
And, and first and foremost, these are animated series written for children. And I love, what I do appreciate about those episodes is the balance that Filoni seems to find with doing things that my 6-year-old can enjoy and the things that I can enjoy out of the same show.
Yeah. Like shooting a police officer in the face. Thank you, Fennec Shan.
That was amazing. It was so dark. I was like, did I just see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not afraid to do dark moments in his stuff. And at some point, you kind of, especially in the Clone Wars and Rebels, you realize, man, there's some stormtroopers that die some pretty horrific deaths.
Yep.
Yeah. Stuff falling on them or getting pushed off a giant cliff.
Right.
I knew the game was different when Sabine was killed by Maul.
Mm-hmm.
That was brutal. I said, okay, this is a whole new ball of wax here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, I mean, any final thoughts on where y'all would like to see the show go? Or just anything that you would like to see before this season's over?
I'd like to see more of the evolution of the troopers, the transition from the clone-based troopers to our classic troopers that we're used to in the, in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing the clone shock troopers. See how my theory is, I think they potentially become the death troopers.
Yeah.
And see how that evolution gets carried through, as they're the only that regiment is the only group of clones kept, and essentially they're kind of killed to be converted to the AWR trooper, because who's the better troop? Do you want to take a new recruit and torture and all that, or do you want to take someone who's always been expendable with the clones and experiment on them, since they're the ones who are more willing to take the direction of, you need to lay down, you need to just deal with this,
Right.
and can be lied to easier.
Yeah.
I want to see somewhere in the season Darth Vader come in and take control of finding these bad batchers by using not only him but bringing in some inquisitors to track them down. And I'm going dark, man. Somebody's got to die. One of these guys, they got to go down. They got to up the stakes on this one.
I think that's going to be Wrecker.
I think it's going to be Crosshair. I think Crosshair, just as Crosshair realizes the error of his ways, and his inhibitor chip finally fizzles out, and he realizes the error of his ways, and he goes to join or reunite with the Bad Batch, he gets wiped out.
Could happen.
That'd be good if he died saving them.
Well, I mean, I was just about to say, I mean, I feel like Wrecker...
We're saving Omega.
Well, that's the thing is, I feel like, I mean, they're all soldiers. They'll all do the right thing. But I feel like Wrecker, more than any of them, would be the one to make the big sacrifice. unquestionably make the big sacrifice at this point.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see where it all plays out. And of course, I want to see where they're going with Omega. But like I said, like Don was saying, I'm real interested in, we've never gotten to explore this period of galactic history. I want to see the last vestiges of the Republic become the Empire. So, well,
I still want to see the A-Team type inspiration too, where they're going from location to location to help keep the Empire from really overtaking an area, and trying to do good against the Empire.
yeah.
Sort of
Yeah.
like in that mercenary type role.
Yeah, I mean, they could wind up with Saw Gerrera or any other number of early resistance groups. It should be real interesting. I mean, there's a ton of potential for these characters, and honestly, a lot more potential than I really thought there was with these characters when they first said they were doing this show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's far and away a better show than I anticipated.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me to talk a little bit about the Bad Batch tonight. And
Absolutely.
I hope y'all have a good night. Thank you to everybody that joined us in the chat. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
See you guys.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.